Refugee Resettlement.
Thank you. It's been 20 years since this congregation undertook the mission of refugee resettlement. It's been my call, my challenge, and my pleasure to have accepted the opportunity to welcome refugees into our culture and economy. Our committee included up to 25 people at times. Together, we set goals for assimilation, education, economic success, and cultural adjustment. But who were these people and why did they come here? They are Montagnards, the French name for mountain people. Of the 50 ethnic tribal groups in the mountains of Vietnam, the largest are the Jarai, who emanate from the middle of the country in Pleiku province. They are Christians, farmers. Their relatives supported the American troops in the years 1950 to 1975. We organized a congregation committee with the kind of long-term objectives that you see listed in the slide. Next slide. These tribal clan families made up the fourth migration from Vietnam. Following large public protests in Vietnam in 2001, masses of Montagnards protested the taking of ancestral lands for plantations, mines, airports, highways, and other economic developments by the communist government of Vietnam. The results were bloody. Villages burned, churches demolished, and strict police controls at the village level. But without land to farm, and with restricted employment and education, many fathers fled the night to Cambodia and United Nations camps, seeking life anywhere else abroad. Vietnam veterans hounded their representatives in Washington, and a bill was passed that authorized immigration, temporary support of $450, not very much, temporary Medicaid, and a path to permanent residency and citizenship. Does all this sound familiar in our day and age of the things that go on? Men left their villages that looked like this, wooden shelters on stilts, and their families behind, and fled by night, sleeping buried in the forest floor by day. And then there was the mighty Mekong River to swim across. They left their fields of rice, coffee, black pepper, and tea. Without land for these crops, families starve. And with no cash crops, the economies of the villages was failing throughout the mountains. Number 6, thin, hungry, frightened. That's how they arrived in our airports. It took a year of processing and interrogation by teams from the United Nations and U.S. Immigration for fathers to come to this country. It took another year for families to gain clearance to join the fathers. Our refugee families came from a subsistence economy without formal education. That's different, for example, than some of the people who are coming to our country now. Most did not read or write in their own language. Upon arrival at midnight from the last change of planes in Chicago, each family was tired, tattered, and scared. They didn't eat for 24 hours. They were just plain terrified. Our own first surprise was at the airport. Our family was 2 unmarried teens who had met in Cambodia. And wow, a second family of 4 young men were handed over to us. John Ellis deftly worked with the Chapel Towers to find an empty apartment where they could sleep on the floor for the first week. When families began to arrive, it meant doctor visits, school registrations, green card applications, job interviews, English lessons, help with homework, driver ed for parents so they could get to work. Our first young couple met in the containment camp in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. They wanted to marry. We wanted them to marry. With a wave of a hand, our pastor, Nancy, at the time, and Chapel Dean Williman agreed they could marry in Duke Chapel. In a borrowed gown and a lone tuxedo, surrounded by congregation members and a few of their clan people, the ceremony was held in Memorial Chapel. We were their Duke connection, and they were our family for certain. Tak Siu and Bui Kasor were man and wife. Right from the start, U.S. citizenship was a clear goal for all the adults. Parents achieved this goal as soon as their 3 years permanent residency was achieved. Older children also studied and passed the test. Younger children inherited the citizenship of their parents. We attended dozens of citizenship ceremonies at the immigration offices. Every one of them is filled with thrills and applause as people from around the world become new Americans. Before the end of that first year, Leila Sue arrived in August as a half-term baby. She would spend 4 months in the Duke NICU before coming home in December. This presented a major logistical problem: preparing and freezing mother's milk, delivering it to the NICU. Congregation members visited and supported daily at this time. Judy Hayes provided leadership and love as these young parents learned to handle a very complicated early childhood, something they could never have imagined in their own country. Congregation ladies rallied with a baby shower. The young family received clothing, toys, equipment, everything a family needs. Taksu and Buick Sar are these young parents, proud of their now 18-year-old daughter who's attending Durham Tech. And they've become spokespersons and leaders within the Montagnard community here in North Carolina. So from no English at all to spokespersons in public, it's quite a jump, believe me. Another major goal was education. That's Leila in the green graduation robe in the picture, finishing high school. Children worked hard to achieve the American dream based on education. Most are honor students, ranking high in the Durham public schools. We realized early on that these could and would be college bound, and that has been the case. They're on many campuses: UNC campuses, Guilford, Warren Wilson, Purdue, Durham Tech, and so on. We count 4 completed college grads, 8 who are in college now, and 3 who are college candidates soon, and 3 high school grads, and 1 kindergarten, nearly all of them honor students. And there's 1 graduate student so far. Without a teaching background, many of us offered English language training. Volunteers from the congregation members and grad students from UNC and Duke. Teachers rotated day by day and week to provide constant help with language and homework. We worked with the teachers and the counselors in the schools. Over the years, our committee introduced a cadre of young people to our culture, our history, art, music, and sport. They attended camps at Chestnut Ridge, Outward Bound, Talisman, Frog Hollow Museum of Science, the Perry Astronomical Research Institute. Students have worked at DCRI and at Duke Neuroscience and attended camps at Duke as well. We also emphasized service to the community and the church. Children participated in Sunday school, worship services, digging sweet potatoes for the Society of St. Andrews, and lots of other things as well. All kids participated in sports and activities: soccer, dance, archery, band, chorus, just like Native Americans. The Binkley Baptist congregation also volunteered to be a sponsor of Montagnards. Their family came with 8 children, an overwhelming challenge. So we've worked with them as well over the years. I remember the first week of school in 2009 for them. 3 buses to 3 schools on 3 different schedules. The parents had migraine headaches for weeks. They had no idea where their children were during the days. The largest Habitat home was built with our partnership with Binkley and the Durham Jewish and Catholic congregations. The Roland Sue family lives there today. They've upgraded floors, furniture, and fixtures because their family has used that house really hard. The father and sons earned sweat equity working on the project. The Ken Sue family of 6 also built a Habitat house supported in part by our congregation and Duke Student Habitat and others. Did anyone have a car to donate? Well, yes, the first car appeared out of nowhere and served for 5 years as important transportation. After 20 years, the front license plate, can you see it down there in the corner? Jesus is Lord, now adorns a 3rd-generation vehicle in that same family. I can't list all of the amazing gifts of the Spirit that poured out from our congregation. People stepped up to offer what they could. Some taught the use of money. Some helped to create bank accounts. Household bill paying was learned. Rick Keena called to say his father had passed away. Would we clear out the 5-room house? Could we bring a truck and take all the things? Could we use them all? We could. Lindsay Alder Wozaszewski asked her medical practice to accept a dozen Medicaid children. They did. Ken Strawbridge hired several fathers for his company. They still work there. Who can help with homework across 9 different grades? Well, grad students and congregation members all did. I want to thank my wife, Sarah, for her listening and understanding these 20 years. Without her constant support and involvement, I could never have done all these things. We shared our American holidays, Easter, Halloween, 4th of July, and so on. And then here's a photo at the end to show the 20 children surrounding me a couple of years ago. Next slide. And they're they're a few years older now, but this one's about 4 years old. And the last slide, most of the 35 family members of these families are together in this picture. They are resettled into our culture and our economy, and they are contributing American citizens. Most of all, I have received amazing gifts of love through the sponsorship of these 5 families, 10 parents, 19 children, and 3 sets of grandparents. This past year, we helped 3 students regain their balance in rough seas, and a special needs youth make the transition to adulthood. Now, we can officially close our congregation's Refugee Resettlement Project, and I thank everyone who's participated over the years. Thank you very much.
I think we should take a moment to pause and unmute yourself and applaud. This is an exciting moment of 20 years of ministry, and this sometimes ministries in a congregation will come to a conclusion because they've run their course and no one's coming anymore. This ministry is concluding because it was successful, and the families don't need the support that they once did. So unmute yourself, give a big round of applause and a praise God.
Yeah.
And a special thank you to Steve, who is honorary grandfather to all these kids, and will continue to do so. So what a blessing that is.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yes, thank you, Steve. There's a lot of good memories there.